This week on the Gruppetto, 4 races, lots of big winners, but there's only one Adam Blythe. We'll have a look at the Dauphine, see what happened, who went well and who didn't, and it certainly wasn't all plain sailing. Well, when we spoke last week, it was a yellow jersey for Mars Pearson after he'd won the opening stage, but then the race moved on at a pace.
Magnus Cort, we're assured it was him, emerged from the mist of day 2, breaking Brun Armiai's heart. The brave Frenchman caught inside the final couple of 100 metres. More Danish delight and Cort's first win for his new team and their marquee winter signing, achieving the squad's marquee win. Uno X Mobility with their first ever World Tour win. A similar Category 3 hill provided the terrain for the next day's proceedings. And despite Cort's will to defend his yellow jersey, Derek G hit the spot. The Canadian, so often second until now, came first. A maiden international victory and another new leader of the race heading into the following day's time trial. By the time G started his ride in the maillot jaune, European champion Josh Tarling had already set a time that would be mightily hard to beat. And world champion Remco Evenepoel had duly come along and, well, beat it. A super ride from the Belgian from Soudal-QuickStep, showing that despite the broken bones in the Basque Country and enforced following stop, he was finding form at just the right time. Despite a fine performance from G, plus a solid Primož Roglic showing, Evenepoel pulled on the yellow leader's jersey. Stage 5 looked every bit like a day for the few sprinters who turned up in France, before wet roads and a shocking incident saw the race and several riders' seasons take a turn for the worse. More riders went down than avoided the mass spill, which resulted in multiple injuries, most notably for Dylan van Baarle and Steven Kruijswijk, who will both miss the Tour de France with broken bones. Roglic and Evenepoel were also down, but thankfully seemed able to carry on. The chaos and confusion gave way to the reality that there wasn't enough medical support remaining in the convoy to guarantee attention should it again be needed. Therefore, the call was made by the race direction to neutralise the stage with 20 kilometres remaining. The day would have no winner, and the GC wouldn't see any change. With sore limbs still in the race and others having to abandon as it continued, the Dauphiné then took a turn for the farcical. Maybe not that bad, but definitely a turn in the wrong direction on the way to the Colle d'Alvar. Yes, the breakaway were sent the wrong way by the lead motorbikes and cars, although it did look like they were doomed before that. Romain Grégoire survived well, but after Ineos Grenadiers had made the race difficult from the bottom of the final all-category ascent to the finish, Laurens de Plus attacked, and Alexander Vlasov was with him. The favourites group soon saw the yellow jersey lose contact, Evenepoel showing his first bit of weakness of the week. Roglic reached Vlasov and was good enough to attack in the end, beating Giulio Ciccone to the line to take the win. Evenepoel came home 42 seconds later, so the Slovenian was the new leader. Paris-Nice winner Matteo Jorgensen was at just under a minute in third place, and a new GC contender was emerging in the shape of 2023 Giro breakaway star Derek G, fresh off his first ever altitude camp. 19 seconds was the difference from leader to second place as the riders rolled up for the second of the 3 final back-to-back mountain stages. On paper, this was the hardest, over 4,000 metres of climbing, 3 first cap climbs and another all-category finish. A super breakaway was away with over 5 minutes of a gap, and Marc Soler, who'd already attacked on the penultimate climb, was still alone on the final ascent. Behind it was another rapid climb from the yellow jersey group, this time led by the leading team. Evenepoel dropped with 7 kilometres still to ride, while Soler was well in front. For the Spaniard, the lights were going out, however, on what had looked like a Soler-powered march to a UAE Emirates stage win. Vlasov blasted off to another man-of-the-match performance, pulling Roglic and the remaining survivors along, whilst Derek G produced another OMG performance. The Canadian was suddenly on the GC podium, behind Roglic and the ever-impressive Jorgensen. He was just about bested in the sprint. As an esteemed colleague would put it, the Dauphiné Roglified for the second time in 3 years. Or so it seemed, because on the final stage to Plateau des Glières, the 2022 Winners' Challenge stalled. De Plus was immensely strong and was trying to set up Carlos Rodriguez, fifth in the GC to that point, for something special. Roglic forced to hang on as the attacks went, and the gap steadily grew in the final kilometres, with Jorgensen and G joining the Spaniard. The trio worked really well until just outside the last K, with the Canadian ridden off the wheel. The US star rode for every second until Rodriguez came around him for the stage win. All eyes were then on the four-time Grand Tour winner Roglic. Was he going to suffer another last-day collapse? No, but it was close. Just 8 seconds the margin of overall victory by the time he crossed the line, and the former ski jumper was the winner of this race for the second time. Despite the obvious doubts that final stage will raise, Rog is certainly back. The numbers: a 21st career GC win, his 16th World Tour General, with a first ever win for Bora Hansgrohe at the Dauphiné, and their first World Tour GC since Jai Hindley's Giro success 2 years ago. Jorgensen's second place confirms the continuation of his own rise to the top, while it's welcome G, a different one to the big time.
Now, aside from the racing over in France, there was also racing in Great Britain. Yes, the Women's Tour was back, and it began in North Wales.
A 4-day race, some of the best riders in the world, and the opening day stage finish contested in Llandudno with a 9-rider supergroup. Would it be Lotte Kopecky or Letizia Paternoster? The latter was celebrating and thought she returned to winning ways on the road for the first time since 2019. Remember, she's a track superstar. But the world champion on the road, also not bad on the track, declared victor on a tight photo finish. On the second morning, though, disaster struck. Life plus Wahoo awoke to find their vans empty and bikes stolen. They'd had to look for a quick solution to be able just to start the race. But such is cycling's nature, other teams cobbled together, pitched in bikes, and the home squad was able to take to the roads of North Wales. Not perfect, but they were where they wanted to be, in amongst the world's best. And once the action was underway, despite the late push from a superbly strong Anna Henderson, it was welcome to Wrexham Kopecky. 2 from 2 and an extension to that GC lead. Day 3 was a pure sprint day, won by Lorena Wiebes. Business as usual for the Dutch star, putting her on 12 wins for the season and halfway to her 2022 personal record of 24. The final stage was a Lancastrian loop around the English city of Manchester, finishing in nearby Lee. And the curse of the Este Works early celebration struck again. However, as Christina Majerus thought she'd won, but was pipped on the line by Australian national champion Ruby Roseman Gannon. It was the 25-year-old's first ever international win. Meanwhile, Kopecky won a race overall for the 5th time. In men's racing in the Netherlands, the ZLM Tour got off to a sharp start with a time trial. Despite the novelty hot seat where riders received a haircut, yes, a haircut, while they were waiting to see if their lead had been trimmed down, it was nothing like a close shave for Rune Herregots, the Belgian beating his nearest rival Tim van Dijken by 12 seconds. The following stages went to Casper van Uden in a bunch sprint, Peter Schulting from a breakaway, just. Dutch sprinter van Uden won another bunch kick, and Dane Alexander Salby, he won the final stage. But Herregots held on to the GC lead, taking it for Intermarché. The Tour de Suisse is on the way. Another Sunday-to-Sunday World Tour pre-tour meeting. The opening stage took place in Liechtenstein, with Yves Lampaert taking the honours in the short time trial around the Alpine microstate, starting and finishing in its capital, Vaduz. The Belgian wears the first yellow jersey, and we'll see how everyone gets on in next week's Gruppetto.
This week we'd like to know all of your thoughts on what happened at the Dauphiné, what's happening currently in Switzerland or in Slovenia, Belgium, depending on what time of the week you're watching. Remember, let us know in the comments below. That's exactly what Adam Blythe did. I had a chat with him after the Dauphiné. Well, it's an absolute delight to be joined by Adam Blythe. First time we've managed to have a chat since the Giro. Adam, you've probably had a nice rest. How have you been?
Good. Good, yeah. I've been busy with the kids, as you can imagine. I've not done any exercise, in ages. Me and Dan got into it down in the Giro, but because I've been away with the kids, I've had a bit going on at home that I've not done any properly. So tomorrow, kids are back in school, and that's it. Straight and narrow again, right back into the Tour. But yeah, I'm good.
Well,
I'm good. How are you? How are you doing? I've been hearing your lovely dulcet tones on the on telly.
Well, I'm not quite sure yet if I'm something tapering down from the Giro or building up to the Tour, but it sounds as though you're building up to the Tour nicely. And I've been watching the final stage of the Dauphine today. How do you rate Primož Roglic, everybody else who's been building up? Remco Evenepoel was their other headline name here as they're going to the Tour, Adam.
Yeah, I think, you know what, everyone's sort of where they need to be, I would say. I think Remco, especially, we have to remember, and I mentioned this on commentary, that the Tour de France, yes, it's only in 3 weeks, it's not far away at all, but that last week of the of the Tour de France, is the important week. It's where a lot can change, and that's 5.5 weeks away, so that's a long time away still. So if you look at the likes of Remco, yes, maybe not quite on the level yet, but he's still got 5 weeks to get there, 2 weeks which will be of the Tour de France, so what will be will be. But I think this next 3 weeks for him especially will be crucial to still build, and I think for the likes of Roglic to try and build, but also they all have to get fresh and get ready for it. So I think it's going to be entertaining. I'm really trying to look past what Pogacar's going to be like there, just because if he's anything like he was at the Giro, even if riders are more on his level, I think just his dominance and the way he was at the Giro is going to be so hard to see past. But we are going to be in for a real treat, and it's the Tour. The Tour's always different. The Tour's always throws a spanner in the works. There's always some drama in the first week. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be an absolute corker.
Well, Primož Roglic just about held on in the Dauphiné, didn't he? A little bit of weakness on the final stage, but as you said, not everybody had 100%. Two headline names behind, one of which we knew about already, Matteo Jorgensen, superb at Paris-Nice, winning a classic as well. And then Derek G. Were you expecting that?
No, I don't think anyone was. I don't think anyone was expecting it. Maybe even he wasn't. I think that's the nice surprise with him is that last year at the Giro, you remember how good he was, like on all those stages, even I think it was one of the third to last stages maybe. I forgot the name where it finished, but he was right up there in the break all day, only got caught right at the line. And if you look at what he did there, yes, he's not gone for GC, but his capabilities were there already. He's able to climb with the best after even being out in the front all day in a breakaway. So I think in that aspect, it's not necessarily a surprise when you look at his performance. I think the surprising thing is that he's not really gone for the stage wins like we've seen him in the past. We've not seen him try to lose time. He's been there every day. He's been up there every day. He's been pushing every day. He's had the support of the team around him as well. And I think for him, it's not so out the blue, but it's where he goes from here. I think that's the big question for me, is that it's not surprising that he's capable of doing it, but what's next? Is it 1 week stage race? Are looking at Grand Tours? Because I think, he can have so much success for the next few years anyway at Grand Tour stage winning. He could go for all three, Giro, Tour, Vuelta, and he's quite more than capable of getting a stage win in 3. So for me, I'd like to see him do that, aim for 1 week stage races like he has been here, and then maybe move on to the GC and later down the line. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And just what a guy to watch. Such a nice, lovely bloke.
It's funny, we heard from his sports director, Darrell Impey, comparing him to the same sort of rider he could be as Geraint Thomas, and that's high praise indeed, isn't it? One thing to add, which is quite astounding really, he only just did his first altitude camp last month, so already reaping the benefits of that. And for viewers who don't quite know, you've done one or two. What is the feeling? What can it give you, Adam?
It's difficult. I think for a lot of the riders going up there, if you've done it a lot, you get into that routine. But if it's your first time up there, the first sort of week, you really have to take it steady because of the altitude, because it's so much harder to breathe up there. It's so much harder for your body to recover. So generally the first week is a little bit steady, a lot of slower miles, and then you build up and build up and build up. And it is beneficial. It's massively beneficial. Sleeping at altitude is a huge, huge benefit. I don't want to go into the science behind it because I can't possibly tell you all the science behind it, but it is a massive benefit from being up there. And I think with training, the way the coaches know about altitude training now, you can really bring a rider on for the likes of Derek G being able to go day after day after day and really perform on long, hard stages and really be able to be right up near your red zone for a long time. Altitude training definitely does that for you. So, yeah, I don't think that'll be Derek G's last performance. I just hope that when Darrell Impey is comparing him to the real G, the Geraint Thomas, that hopefully he doesn't crash as much as the real Geraint Thomas did.
Let's hope he's not listening, eh? One man in between that third place G and, of course, the winner, Primož Roglic. Matteo Jorgensen, and he's no surprise to us anymore, is he? He was already very good last year at Movistar, really stepped up a level into this sort of high-performance culture at Visma Lease Bike. They, again, have had shocking luck with injuries this week. Dylan van Baarle out of the Tour de France. A broken hip for Steven Kruijswijk out of the Tour de France. But they will take quite a lot of encouragement from Jorgensen again. And we don't quite know what's happening yet with Van Aert, Laporte, and of course the main man, Jonas Vingegaard. No announcement expected at least for another week or two on that. But they've got reason to be optimistic with Matteo Jorgensen, haven't they?
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, if you look at his performance here, you can take a lot away from it. I think Jorgensen, even though he's not a surprise, it's still a surprise for me that he's right up there. You know, you look at Paris-Nice start the season, riders looking later on in the year, the Tour de France, but this is right around the corner. So for me, that exceptional performance. We know it was good, but I think this has probably been one of his better ones in terms of consistency. He's backing everything up at the minute. And I think looking at the Tour de France for him, let's not forget it's 3 weeks. He's performed in 1 week stage races. Yes, he's performed in the Grand Tours before, but not at a GC level. That team knows what they're doing. They know how to, get round a Grand Tour. And I think for Jorgensen, he's not the rider, the big favourite, the big name like Sepp Kuss, like Roglic. And I think for him, he doesn't need that massive amount of team there. I think being a little bit of an underdog, he can get away with going in a little bit less pressure, not the biggest team around him, and still get a similar result. I think it's a very good test for him to see how he can do. And I think anything's a bonus, if he's second on the podium, if he's first, if he wins the Tour de France, if he's 10th, if he's 8th, whatever it might be, he's definitely going to be there in years to come. So I think for the team, it's sort of an investment trial, if not anything else for him. But he's fantastic, and it wouldn't surprise me, if he was on the podium there whatsoever, because he's amazing.
It's a different tour this year, isn't it? Of course, there's no finish in Paris. We know that, and we've known that for a long time because that's going to be the home of the Olympic Games this summer. It's that finish in Nice with the time trial on the last day, but the start of the tour this year is in Italy, and it's mightily difficult, isn't it? You're talking of a lot of 1,000 metres on the first day, another few thousand metres on the second day, not really getting to any sprint opportunities until the third day. It looks even harder than last year's Basque Country start, doesn't it?
Yeah, it will be. I think it's what the Grand Tours are looking at. We looked at the Giro this year as well. Super hard for opening first day. And I think it just settles the GC a little bit. Makes it entertaining for us to watch. There's a pink jersey up for grabs, but yellow jersey up for grabs. Sorry, I'm still in Giro.
We are in Italy, but it will be yellow this time,
yeah. But I think, it's really hard not to think too much about it. But if you look at that stage and you look at who's riding, we both know what I'm about to say. It's got Tadej Pogačar written all over it. It's that sort of terrain. It's that sort of steep mountains. That's explosive mountains. Yes, it is the Tour de France, but there are so many riders that would suit that day that are going to be missing because of the Olympics. You look at Mathieu van der Poel, you look at Wout van Aert. These riders not doing the Tour, it suits them down to the ground, And if they're not there, there's one other man that competes with them on that level, and that's Tadej Pogačar, and he is going to be there. So I think it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be the end of the GC in those first couple of days, but it's certainly going to make a big impact.
I'm glad you said it's not going to be the end, because that's the next question I was going to come on to. We saw Pogačar on fire at the start of the last tour, didn't we? This year, it was also mightily difficult in the last week, because it often is, but it looks even more difficult this time. There's not much for the sprinters this year, really, at this year's tour. But how do you play that game then of being good for that last week, as we keep talking about, You know, Tour de France starts, we're recording this just under 3 weeks to go, but you've got to be good in 5 weeks as well, haven't you? How do you make that balance of being good at the start and at the end? Because yes, you can time to come good at the end, but you can't be missing out by too much in the first few stages.
I think you've just got to compartmentalise the Tour. You know, if you look at the Giro, for example, that was very easy to do so. Super hard opening 9 days, a couple of easy days in there, and then the easy days with a sprinter's opportunity. So for a GC rider and GC team, sprint day don't have to ride, no matter what, because the sprint teams are so hungry. And with so few sprint stages, they'll want to make sure it's a sprint. So those days for the GC teams, they're not on the front. The other days around that is you've got the 2 hard days at the start. If you're looking to take time, 2 hard days, straight out the blocks, take as much as you can. Rest day the next day, sprint day, super easy. Then you look at that down the line. If you look at what happened at the Giro, we had 9 very hard stages for Tadej Pogačar. Took as much time as he possibly could at every opportunity. Then he had a week almost off because of all the sprint stages, the up and down stages where it wasn't really GC days. Brilliant. And then after that, you had a final big week. So he had 2 stage wins and he was 3 opportunities for him. He took 2 and then took time on the third one. And if you look at the Tour like that, it's definitely one of those... It's definitely you can do that at the Tour de France. You just got to make sure every day that you can have off or make sure that it's not going to be a big day is not one. But the difference is here it's the Tour de France. It's just got that little bit more unpredictability about it. It's got the big Tour de France stage win written across it as well. So I think for him it'll all just be about picking his day of when he wants to try and get that time back, as opposed to just looking at every stage and saying I can try and get a little bit of time, I can try and get a little bit. I think he'll be very selective, as he was at the Giro, about when he was going to do something.
Well, it's getting ever closer. Tour de Suisse is now underway as well. Slovenia, Belgium this week. Then we'll be into nationals, and then of course we'll be into the Tour itself. Adam, looking forward to it? Or silly question?
I am buzzing for it. Yeah, 2 weeks in the studio, then last week on the motorbike again, which will be very different without the Champs-Élysées this year, but a bit gutted about it, not going to lie. But yeah, it'll be wicked. I can't wait.
Well, instead of the champagne on the Champs-Élysées, I'm sure you might be able to stop for a dinner with a nice look out over the Bay of Nice or something like that.
Come on, I'll be on rosé on beach duck all day long.
That's got Adam Blythe written all over it, hasn't it? You used to live down in Monaco for a while, you know the area. Well, you're on the subject of the motorbike. We had Matt Stevens with us last week, and he's going to have a week on the motorbike himself. And as a seasoned moto reporter that you are now, my advice, and I know nothing about this, so it was pretty rubbish advice, was to buy the rest of those brown shorts that Azure Design was selling off at the end of last year. What's your proper seasoned advice for Matt Stevens?
Enjoy it. Just embrace every bit of it. 'Cause it is one of them things that on a quiet day on a motorbike, they're generally the best days because you get so many riders coming back. You see a lot more. Whereas the busy days, the day in the mountains, all that kind of stuff, you can't get to the front. You can't see a lot. You can't see what's happening. So I rely on you guys for the commentary to get to know what's happening in the race because I can't see through 50 riders, 10 riders, whatever it is. So it's amazing, but you need to appreciate those quiet moments on the motorbike. I think for Matt, the main thing will be as soon as it goes downhill. Honestly, it's terrifying. You're not in control. You're just holding on to this thing. You've got bike riders coming past you left and right, and it's trying to grip on. You're trying to look around so you can do a live report. There's cars coming past you. There's people in the middle of the road shouting and screaming, cheering on the bike riders as well. There's a lot going on, but just embrace it all because it's wicked, and Matt will absolutely love it. We know what Matt's like. He's the most enthusiastic person in the world, so he'll adore it.
Brilliant. Well, you've already got me holding on to the chair here, worried about just thinking about it. All the best, Matt. And Adam, thanks a lot. We'll see you at the Tour in a couple of weeks' time.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, mate.
Ciao. Bye-bye. Poor Matt, eh? So much advice, information, more pieces of information, in fact, than days he's got to spend on the motorbike itself. He will have a great time, and we'll look forward to watching him and, of course, all of the riders of the Tour de France when it begins in just a few weeks' time. Well, it's just over 2 weeks now until the Tour, certainly less than 3, and the Tour de Suisse marks the next reference points on the road to the Tour. The likes of Cavendish, Adam Yates are going to be involved. Carapaz is there, Joao Almeida. It is a luxury list of starters. First stage you already told you about. The rest of the race is now live on Eurosport and Discovery Plus, where you can watch that and the following races this week. You can see it's not just the Tour de Suisse on. We've got action too coming from Slovenia. I can tell you too that the Tour of Belgium is being ridden, and we'll have a few national championships later on before we get to the Tour. Check your schedules wherever you're watching for all of the relevant start time information. Remember too, you can see daily highlights from a lot of the races on our Eurosport Cycling YouTube channel. That's where you can catch us here, and that's where we want to see you subscribe. Give us a share, a like as well, and of course a reminder in those comments, maybe an idea of questions you'd like to be asked and who you'd like to see on this show answering them. For now though, from me, Rob, from Spain, from Soya, enjoy the week. I'll certainly enjoy watching Swiss. We'll review it next week, eh? See you then.